Swashbucklers, you're listening to Under the Crossbones, episode number 136. My name is Phil Johnson. I'm your host for the show. Are you turned up, as the kids say? Here we are. Episode number 136. I've got a great show for you today. The last week's show with Jordan Wiley, very, very popular. I'm glad that you guys liked it. I wasn't sure honestly how it was going to be taken. So I'm glad that you guys are into the modern stuff too. We had a great time. I will be having future guests on where we can talk more about that modern stuff. And I think that's really great. Now, there are two things that people ask about when I tell them that I do a podcast about pirates. They ask Somali or Pittsburgh. So we've taken care of Somali, but we've not done Pittsburgh. So I have a question for you. And I honestly want your answer to this. Would you like me to interview somebody from the Pittsburgh Pirates organization? If you don't know who they are, that's baseball, and you probably aren't interested in hearing about it if you don't know who they are. But if that might be interesting to you, it is something I can set up potentially. So let me know. Leave a comment on the show notes page, or come over to Facebook or Twitter, or call the hotline at what's the hotline? 408-599-2733. Send me an email, phil@underthecrossbones.com. Whatever. If you'd like to hear somebody from the Pittsburgh Pirates organization on this show, we'll make it happen. But let me know, okay? And if it seems like people want to hear about it, then we'll work on that. But today, we're back to a more normal context of piratey stuff. We're going to talk to Samuel Marquis, who is the author of a book called Blackbeard, The Birth of America, which is a fictionalized account based on fact, or what we know as fact, of Blackbeard's life and how it relates to early thoughts of the American Revolution. It's a really cool, interesting book, and so we're going to get into talking with Samuel Marquis here in just a few minutes. Been an interesting day here in Old Milpitas, California. We've already had a thunderstorm and an earthquake. Yeah, and it's just about noon, so it's been an interesting morning. That's the funny thing. When I travel around the country, people always go, "Oh, you live in California. Those earthquakes must be terrifying." And they're honestly not that terrifying. I was sitting here at my desk doing some work, writing some jokes, and I didn't even get up from my desk chair. I was just like, well, this will be over in a second. That whole, dive for a door frame or under a tape, we don't generally bother with that. If it were to go on for a long time, we might consider getting off the sofa. But the earthquake's not a big deal. But we had that going on today. We had a thunderstorm going on today, and now the storm's starting to lay off and the sun's coming out. So we're getting back to the California thing, which would be nice. And so anyway, yes, I'm so glad everybody liked the Jordan Wiley episode last week. Very cool on that. One other little piece of pirate news. On a few episodes ago, we talked with Arnon Shore, who is a writer-director, wrote a short film called The Pirate Captain Toledano. Another very popular episode this year. I'm so glad you guys liked that one too, because I was really into that one. Well, now you can see The Pirate Captain Toledano all for yourself. It's officially available to the public after it's made its crazy festival run. This film has won so many awards on the festival circuit. It's insane. So you definitely should see it. It's a 10-minute film. It's not very long. It'll make you want your next bathroom break fantastic. So here's how you can get it. You can get it on Amazon for rental or download, or there is a way to buy a DVD as well. The DVD, I think, is like $10 if you want it on DVD. The rentals on Amazon, super cheap. It's like $1 to rent it and $2 to download it or something like that. So super cheap. So if you go put in The Pirate Captain Toledano on Amazon, you'll find it there. Go to the Facebook page for The Pirate Captain Toledano. Just put that in the Facebook search. It'll pop up. And I will put the links to it in the show notes for this episode as well, so that you can just click right on through there. Those show notes will be at underthecrossbones.com/136 for episode 136. Plus, if you click on the Amazon link in the show notes, then you're help supporting the show too, because Amazon kicks me back a few little pennies for that. And that helps everybody. It's very nice. We went and saw Ready Player One over the weekend. I know it's been out a couple of weeks now, but we hadn't had a chance to see it yet because we were traveling and what all. And some people are like super into this book. Like it's their favoriteest book ever. And I read the book. I read Ready Player One, and I was like, okay, this is an obvious nostalgia grab for us 80s kids, and I got it, and it was a fun read, and it's a well-written book. I have no quibbles with the book at all. The movie, very different. The basics are there, but there's a lot of stuff that they left out for sake of time. It's still a 2-hour film, and there is a lot of depth and backstory and exposition in the book. But they changed up even a lot of the challenges and things that had to be taken care of. But I think the movie does cover the same themes in a slightly different way that the book. So I don't think if you love the book Ready Player One, then you've probably already seen the movie and don't care what I'm talking about anyway. But if you haven't read the book yet, I would say go see the movie first. And then read the book after. And I often tend to do that anyway. I kind of like to do that because I always know the movie's going to leave something out anyway, and then I can go get the rest of it in the book. So I think that's a good way to do it. So if you haven't read the book yet, go see the movie first. It's very fun. It's very enjoyable. It was great. My girlfriend loved it. She has never read the book. So it's a good, fun movie. And then go read the book. And so you can get more in-depth with the story there. So I don't know why I'm reviewing movies right now, but that's what we did yesterday, and it was a lot of fun. But it's back to work this week. Shows, tour dates this week. Tuesday, the 17th. That's today if you're listening to this, the day it comes out. Tax day. Ooh, hope you got that done already. Yeah, I got mine done like a month ago. I didn't want to go on vacation having that way on my mind, so I got my taxes done about a month ago. Anyway, Tuesday, April the 17th, I will be at Farrington's Pub in Pleasant Hill, California, headlining that show. Should be a lot of fun. Thursday, April the 19th, I'll be at Laughs Unlimited in Sacramento, California. That's a satellite date for the World Series of Comedy. So I will be doing my super best 7 minutes worth of stuff, as will everybody else on the show. If you like your comedy in short YouTube-style doses, and with everybody doing the absolute best stuff that they have written, these World Series of Comedy shows are super fun. Because it's just bang, 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 short sets, bunch of really great comics that have been pre-vetted to get on the show. It's not like, sign up, get up. It's not that kind of thing. It's you have to submit a tape, you get approved, you get to go on, all that kind of thing. So that is the Laughs Unlimited, Sacramento, California, April the 19th. And they're doing these satellites all over the country. So if you happen to find one at, Wiley's in Dayton, or they're doing a couple places in Florida. I know they're doing Loonies in Colorado Springs. They're doing the Looney Bin in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So anyway, if you find one near you, go. It's a whole bunch of fun. But I will be at the one April 19th at Laughs Unlimited in Sacramento, California. April the 27th, that is a Friday night, I'll be making a guest appearance at the Ventura Harbor Comedy Club in Ventura, California. And April the 29th, which is a Sunday, I will be at the Ice House in Pasadena, California, doing a little guest spot there, opening for a hypnotist, which should be fun. And I like hypnotism shows, so I'll probably hang out and check out the rest of the gig after that. But I will be going to Los Angeles for also non-comedy purposes, because I'll be having a little sit down with Talderoy about the Long Beach pirate invasion and what my function during the festival is going to be. I know I'll be on stage. I will be doing something. It will probably be funny and pirate-oriented. That's all I know at this point. But I'm going to chat with Talderoy, and we're going to get it hashed out and figure out what I'll be doing at the festival for those 2 days, which I think is June 30th and July 1st in Long Beach, California. So anyway, put that on your calendar. We are sponsored today by TeePublic, and they are a cool company that works with independent artists on t-shirt designs, original t-shirt designs. And then what I've done is curated over 100 super cool, super awesome pirate t-shirts that I know you're going to love. There's funny ones, there's sexy ones, there's scary ones. So whatever your taste in pirate t-shirt couture is, there's something there for you. Go to underthecrossbones.com. Under the crossbone. I haven't even been drinking today. There is no rum in my salad for lunch. Go to underthecrossbones.com/shirt, and you can see the shirts that I picked out for you. Cool pirate shirts, over 100 of them. Again, that's underthecrossbones.com/shirt. Check it out. If you want to support Under the Crossbones monetarily in some way, you can go to underthecrossbones.com/support. There's a little donation box there, PayPal donation box. You drop whatever you want in there, and I will use it to make the show bigger by advertising and things like that. You can click on the Amazon banner there, and like I told you, Amazon kicks me back a few pennies when you buy something, so that doesn't even cost you any money. You click the Amazon banner, you go buy yourself something nice like a pen, or a blow-up pool for the summer, or a book like maybe Samuel Marquis's book, right? Blackbeard, The Birth of America. You can get that there. Click that little banner. Go buy yourself something nice. Amazon kicks me back a few shekels. We keep the old boat afloat. And if you want to be a sponsor of the show, that's cheap and easy too. Just go to underthecrossbones.com/support. My mouth not working today. /support, and you can find out how all that sponsorship stuff works. And of course, all the show notes for this episode will be at underthecrossbones.com/136. Okie dokie, it's that time. Let's get into my talk with Samuel Marquis, author of Blackbeard, The Birth of America. Check it out. Well, Sam, thanks for coming on the show today. I've been enjoying your book. I'm further into it than last time we tried to talk.
Okay.
And so it's really enjoyable. So Blackbeard, The Birth of America, and it is a fictionalized account of Blackbeard's time as a pirate. Is that a fair description of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, one of the things, in kind of these interviews is, I really wrote it. It is a historical fiction book, but again, I tried to take every scene that I could of Blackbeard and Governor Spotswood, because he's really his antagonist throughout the whole book. I've really tried to take as much as I could every historically important event and put it in the book. And then sometimes, of course, I have to kind of fill in the backstory. If a couple of months elapse, I kind of fill in the backstory where it reads really like a history book. So I haven't taken a lot of liberties. I mean, character is always something that's interpretive, but really I've tried to follow really kind of the Blackbeard script, but provide the newest interpretation of him that I think really accurately characterizes him. And also Governor Spotswood, because they're really kind of, almost equals in terms of antagonist, protagonist.
Yeah, certainly, definitely. And so tell me about what your research process looked like to get the historical part of it, and then we'll talk about a little bit about the characterization.
Yeah, like you, Phil, I really enjoy, studying about privateers and pirates. And it really started about, it started in our family, kind of comes from the fact that I'm the ninth great grandson of Captain Kidd. So we've always talked about him in the family, like, Captain Kidd, got hung for, being naughty. Don't be bad, son, that kind of thing. And so it's always been sort of in the background of the family. And we have, like I said, my cousin David's a professor and a genealogist who's really into our family history going way back to colonial America. Because we were like, there's French Huguenots and all these other things. So really it started for me, though, this book, probably a decade ago when I went to the Outer Banks and I just started with Kevin Duffus's book on Blackbeard.
Okay.
And which, really was kind of really he's taken it a different interpretation that I don't necessarily agree with in my book, but he does have a lot of, things I think to offer in the Blackbeard story. I think he is really one of the best historians as far as really trying to get at the heart of Blackbeard.
Okay.
So it started then that, in my head, and then my agent, around 5 years ago was like, oh, you're the great grandson of Captain Kidd. You got to write a pirate book. So she was always pushing me to do that. And then I finally just, did this book. So just because it was the 300th anniversary of Blackbeard and I was back at Ocracoke staring out where he fought his last battle. And I was like, my wife's like, should I do this book? She's like, yeah, get your butt going and get it done.
Nice. That's fantastic. So you are because your last trilogy was a World War II themed trilogy, which was also a fictionalized account. Yes. Yeah.
And it's a series now. It started out as a trilogy, but I'm going to kind of continue with these World War II books. And I'd like to continue with it, certainly at least a pirate trilogy. Obviously, I got to do one about Captain Kidd.
Uh-huh.
And then the question is, who would be the third one?
Okay.
To me, Blackbeard's really the most interesting. So I like, I enjoy doing the pirate books too. So I probably will kind of continue with, mostly World War II, but with a I got to do a Captain Kidd book. And then the question is, who's the other one? And I kind of, would lean towards Henry Morgan.
Oh, that's a good
myself,
choice. Yeah.
But there's others. Yeah, just because he intrigues me.
Yeah. So my intent being with that question that you are in general not a nonfiction writer. Like you never thought about doing a research-based nonfiction pirate book like Colin Woodard would do or something like that.
Well, that's the thing is I kind of, when I wrote this book, I was almost like, God, I should have just done the most up-to-date Blackbeard book that takes into account all the newest research and really done it because I think it needs to be done. So I may actually in the future try and do that.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, because it really is, you can see how it reads. It's not a typical historical fiction book. I tend to pack in a lot of detail and make it kind of a hybrid between historical fiction and just, sort of adventurous, nonfiction, like someone like Hampton Sides writes. I don't know if you read Hampton Sides, but or Eric Larson. I'm kind of
okay.
If I did it, I would be like those guys.
Okay, yeah. So the way it reads, which I think is a really cool mixture, is that it reads like you're standing in the room listening to these guys talk about what later on ends up in the history books and in the research books and things like that. So it's it really just takes the stuff that the research that's been done, but puts you in the present time in the room with those historical figures and listening to the discussions, which I think is a really great way of doing it. How did you go about designing the characterization, designing the personality of the particular characters in the book?
I think it just comes from I've like you, who I'm sure you read probably just about everything there is on pirates, and anything new, you're always like, well, what's the new interpretation?
Sure.
So I've just been reading this for really kind of like I said, it started sort of probably I think it was close to a decade ago, maybe 8 years ago, but really. Fairly frequently I go to the Outer Banks. I just read pirate books.
Okay.
I'm in Blackbeard mode.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of started with just read everything you can. Including the primary sources. You got to fill it. You got to read in between the lines when it says certain things. Like Blackbeard. Okay, well, when he took the Queen Anne, when he took La Concorde. The French slaver in the fall of 1717, late fall of 1717, how many slaves did he actually take and how many did he convert into pirates? That's, you gotta go through those numbers and see who sorted through that the best.
Sure.
And you can go to the primary documents, but then you have to go to the secondary documents because those guys some of those guys are the experts. And then you have to figure out, well, who's plausible and who's not. I mean, who's just regurgitating these Blackbeard myths that are just garbage versus those like Bennerson Little, Colin Woodard, Kevin Duffus,
right.
Brooks, Bayless Brooks, Arne Bielachewski. Those are the credible guys.
Yeah.
And so I go through the primaries, then I go through, okay, who's credible, and then I sort through and figure out what's the most plausible arguments for all. And that's what this book is.
Okay.
All of that.
And when you're writing the dialogue for those characters, what do you put in your mind to differentiate? Because it would be real easy to accidentally wind up with 3 pirate characters that all kind of sound the same. How did you differentiate in your head between Blackbeard and Sam Bellamy and Benjamin Hornigold so that they came out sounding like different characters?
Well, I think Bellamy. Here's the thing with pirates that you know better than probably anybody. We know most of it from trial records, really, and then firsthand accounts from the guys that were captured, whose merchant vessels were taken. So between those two, that's where you kind of get the language that they used in the time. And then I try and not overdo the pirate. I try and put in a little bit of, ye and, but don't fill it with arg and,
right.
stupid stuff, But I put in enough just so you can kind of, hopefully you have a sense for it. But I put in enough so they're pirates talking, and remember, colonists really talk the same way.
Sure.
Just maybe not quite as exaggerated. And so you have to get that right. And to be honest, even Colin Woodard, admits that the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie really got that right. They really focused on the pirates and the articles and the interesting things, and then they got carried away with all the supernatural
right.
in the later one. So I try and make it as real as I can. I'm not a perfect pirate dialogue guy, but I've done, I really worked as hard as I could to make it piratey, but not too piratey. I try to differentiate. Bellamy luckily has a fair amount of some of the things he said because of the trial,
Okay.
In Massachusetts. Blackbeard never was tried, so Steve Bonnet has a fair amount of stuff that he said from his trial.
Okay.
So I kind of have how those guys talk, and then I have but in order to make them different, really you would say that probably Steve Bonnet came with a wealthy plantation owner. Blackbeard came from a similar background, but was probably less of an aristocratic type than Steve Bonnet.
Sure.
So I've always positioned them a little differently that way. Spotswood would have been kind of a snobby Brit,
right?
Who was promoting the British crown. He absolutely loathed the American colonists and thought they were way beneath them. That he was the British crown and he represented it. He could do whatever he wanted, and he thought they were a bunch of lowlifes who were. So I have the battles between him and Philip Ludwell the Younger, good sparring matches between the colonial perspective, which really Blackbeard was part of, and the British crown.
Right. Now, just from a strictly sort of writing technique background, how much do you sort of outline or sketch out the character profiles of those characters before diving in and writing? Or do you just dive in and write and see how they pan out?
Well, that's a good question, because what I did when I first, most of my earlier books were sort of environmental thrillers and international espionage and sort of political thrillers. So I have my international espionage series, and I kind of had my Joe Heigl. He's an environmental sleuth, which is what I do for a living.
Okay,
that's my day job that actually pays the bulk of the bill.
Yeah.
So I started out, and I'm a scientist. So you can see if you look at my books, you can see kind of there's a scientist behind the scenes making sure that, I try to make it accurate, and that's why I'm sort of technical. And so some military.com, I do articles for them. They kind of compare me to Clancy, when he was doing his earlier stuff, and he kind of did things very technical and has a lot of detail,
Sure.
And so I'm kind of detail oriented in that because I'm a hydrogeologist. And so I try and pack in a lot of detail. So in terms of the, I guess your original question was how do you get the dialogue of the characters to match up and those kinds of things?
Yeah. So I was asking, do you sort of, as a preparation for writing the book, do you go in and create sort of a character profile / summary / sketch, or do you just start writing a first draft and see how the characters pan out and then go back in and refine them later?
Yeah, I got sort of sidetracked there.
That's okay.
You're right. So the point I was getting to is in my earlier works, yes, I write out detailed character biographies for my fictional, espionage world or environmental sleuth world. For this, I just read everything and I get the events there. So basically each chapter is a historical event.
Okay.
Per se. So I just get the date. Now I get it down to these historical books. I get it down just to the date and what's going on then, and then I do my research and pull in all the relevant things into a chapter historically, and then I write it for the dialogue and all that kind of stuff.
Okay, interesting. And interesting that you would use two different systems for that too, I think.
Well, because the characters, I know their backstory. It's all in my head, and it's a matter of bringing it out periodically throughout the course of the book without dumping too much information early. So when I have to create this detailed backstory for my, for my sort of, fictionalized espionage type books, but my World War II books and this, it's more get the event, get the scene. And then, and I do have backstories for my first World War II thriller, but the last one was really, I get the scene down, so I get a date, I get the point of view characters, I get the central conflict, and that's all I do. And then I get the information in that relates to them, and then I try and do the scene.
Makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense.
And that just works, because I don't have to do these detailed outlines to create a fictional world. It's already there. It's a matter of picking, in that case, it's a matter of picking what are the most interesting events of Blackbeard.
Right.
And getting them all in, and then getting all the spots. What was he doing? And then Steve Bonnet, and each of those comes, and I got to deliver the narrative so they all intertwine. And at the end, and I still have a central theme. My theme is still sort of the Blackbeard as a precursor to the American patriots.
Right. Yeah.
The revolution.
Yeah. And so this is taking place in the late 17 teens, roughly in there, 17, 18. And you do place Blackbeard and pretty much everybody else that's happening in there as a precursor to the American Revolution. How much research is out there that would support that? I mean, we've heard about them being a freedom fighter type, but how much of the America talk was happening 50 years before the actual revolution?
Well, I think that's one thing I had to research that. Basically, to answer that question first, Mariners were one of the ones who were really talking about the Americas and Americans early on. So that was starting by the mid and late 1600s that they were, calling them, the Americas and Americans.
Okay.
It increased at the turn of the 17th, by Blackbeard's time, it had increased to where colonists were, outright rebellious in their own little ways and really wanted to be left alone. And it was happening in Captain Kidd's time. So he was around the turn of the century.
Uh-huh.
So it was all about what's happening. And, really by 1750, it was very strong, resistance. And that was escalating at that point. So you're getting sort of the incipient revolution. And the two themes are intertwined. Let's go after the 1% and take down the British Crown is interrelated with the colonial freedom aspect. They just wanted to be left alone by the British, but yet they still took pride in being British. But they were opposed to King George, George I, who, the German elector who didn't speak English at all.
Mm-hmm.
So the pirates they're all Jacobites who were sympathetic to, the Stuart line of Scotland, And so all of those things are intertwined. They're all interconnected. And most authors connect them all. Woodard connects them, and, so does Duffus and Brooks and all those. I think Brooks and Biachaluski and some of the others are bringing out this theme a little more now, and other writers too. I got to say, I noticed that, and the people you've interviewed, there's a number there, and I wish I should pull it up real quick. A number of authors that you have that talk about how the support came from the colonists to, during the age of piracy. And I can't remember the author's name offhand, but I know you interviewed them.
Yeah.
So all of those themes are interrelated. See, they're not separate. But what I've done is I've kind of brought them together. The anti-King George Jacobite theme, the leave us alone, we're not British. I mean, we love Britain, we support Britain, but we don't support the king, but we still want to be left alone and have our own system of government theme. And then the Sam Bellamy, we're Robin Hood men's theme. They're all interrelated.
Right.
And that's why I tried to bring them out, because they're not separate issues. They've been treated separately, and I think that's been wrong.
Yeah, well, I mean, anything in society is going to be all sort of intertwined like that. So I think it makes sense to do for sure. Let's go back to the Captain Kidd thing here for a second. So you mentioned that there's been family lore throughout your life. Can you tell me a little bit more about Captain Kidd being somewhere back in the Marquis family? Yeah,
I mean, I don't know exact details of exactly where he's placed. I just know from my cousin David, who I said he's a professor, biology professor and sort of genetics at the South Dakota School of Mines.
Uh-huh.
And he does, he's really into our family history. So I just emailed him and said, okay, we've always talked about Blackbeard being, our ancestor. I said, exactly what am I and what are you? And he's like, you and I are both the 9th great-grandson of Captain William Kidd.
Okay.
So I don't know the exact lineage and all that. I just know that, and I trust him because he's, professor and expert in all this stuff.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
So that, yeah. So, I don't know, but I do know the Captain Kidd, and largely from, the book by Ritchie. I don't know, he might have been one that you interviewed too.
Not yet.
But he's done a good biography on my ancestor, Captain Kidd,
okay.
who was, really was a privateer who just, had an unruly crew that he couldn't control and then crossed the line into piracy.
Exactly, yeah.
He killed his gunner, Moore with a bucket by hitting him over the head with a bucket. So, I mean, and then at that point, he tried to ingratiate himself with sort of the wealthy elite of his day. And, he was kind of a wealthy background, and he married a wealthy younger woman. And, but he, he let his crew go too far, and in a case where he was really supposed to be in command and not a pirate, that he lost it and became a pirate.
Sure. Yeah.
And then they made an example out of him, and everyone abandoned him. So
right. Yeah. Have you been to the house in Marcus Hook?
No, I have not been to the house there where Margaret or Marcus Hook lived, or supposedly lived. That's not 100% sure exactly. It's clear that she lived in that area and had a house like that. That house, from what I've read, has been dated and maybe is not necessarily specifically her house, but it's enough that, that's the house the description of that house is what I use in the book, because it is the closest thing, and it's close to that time period.
Yeah.
But clearly she did exist, and, she did have a, relationship with Blackbeard, and, his returns to Philadelphia, I think it's evident that, he was visiting her during those periods. He probably got to know her well when he was sailing as a first mate out of Philadelphia after the War of Spanish Succession ended in 1713.
Okay. Yeah.
That's where people place him.
Got it.
And he would have the Jamaica origin before that, but then he would have sailed as a mate probably a couple of years before the Spanish wrecks.
Right.
And then that's what really threw everybody in the golden age of piracy.
Right. And the house in Marcus Hook, regardless of its actual provenance or whatever, has some really bizarre stories to it. There was I interviewed Michael Manercha about it, who owns the house, not this last Halloween, the previous Halloween episode before that. And he's got some amazing stories about that house. I can't remember the episode number, but it's a creepy one.
Right. The plank house. Yeah. It's a small plank house.
Yep.
But it's definitely dated close to when she lived there, but I just can't say for certain that she lived there. But it seems to be the most described house,
right,
where Blackbeard, hung out, with her.
Yeah.
So I've kind of, I've taken the relationship, to have a love relationship. We don't know a lot of the details about it, but you haven't finished the book yet, but at the end there's about a 15-page description of everything that's historically based and what happened to the characters,
Oh, nice.
That you'll be interested in, I think, at the end.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. That's great. So tell me a little bit about how you got started as a writer, since you're a hydrogeologist. How do you go from that to writing novels about spies in World War II and pirates?
Well, that's a good question. I kind of was always, the thing is, I've always been a writer. When I was in high school, I wrote a novel, but it was like horrible. I hope no one ever finds it. So I've always done that. And even in college, when I was a geology major, and then I went on to get a master's in geology, I wrote a number of, I founded the Denison Journal of Geosciences, and I took a bunch of English classes. So I was always writing a lot. And then before I started writing, suspense novels and historical novels, I published a lot of papers and in journals. Like I published my master's thesis in the American Association of Petroleum Geologists Bulletin. And, so I was always writing a lot,
Uh-huh.
That's what I'm saying. So I was kind of always it was really always in me. It just, at some point I just made the conscious decision to start writing, books instead of technical papers and stuff.
Right. And was the first stuff was the technical spy stuff then?
Well, my first book, yes, actually, the first book was called The Slush Pile Brigade, but I changed the title and kind of rebranded it as part of my international espionage series. So it's called The Devil's Brigade, kind of in tribute to the old movie with William Holden from the 60s and the First Special Service Force, which I then wrote about in my World War II, thriller novel based on history called Altar of Resistance.
Okay.
About the battle for Rome during World War II.
Nice. Interesting. So how many books do you have out now? That seems like a lot of books.
I guess this is my 8th one.
Okay. That's fantastic. That is a lot of output.
Yeah, and I have a World War II one coming out in June that will be the 3rd in my World War II series. So, and I'm going to, kind of keep kind of cranking that along. So it's not just a trilogy now, it'll be a series.
Nice. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's really great. So where is the best place online for people to keep up with what you're doing and what you're working on?
Well, I think, my website is samuelmarquisbooks.com.
Okay.
And so they can, they basically have links to everything there, Barnes & Noble, Amazon and indie and all the indie bookstores. So it has links there and it has descriptions of me and the books and stuff. But really, in Amazon and Barnes and Noble and indie bookstores, you can order everything directly. Whether it's in the store or not, that's sort of hit or miss depending on where you are.
Sure.
But in general, you can always get ordering the books via those outlets.
Great, and I'll make sure that that's all in the show notes. And if you can find a bookstore somewhere, you can get it at a bookstore. I miss bookstores. We have like 2 left around me here, and they're a dying breed, unfortunately. Yeah, so I'll get all that in the show notes. And is there anything I did not ask you that you want everybody to know about?
No, well, I think the interesting thing is why what's important about the Blackbeard book, Blackbeard,
Sure.
The Birth of America. And it's really, I really wanted to incorporate kind of the latest research on him in one book that really characterized what I think he was really about. And I think to some extent, Blackbeard really is the most famous, most well-known household name pirate of all time,
Certainly.
really, compared to everybody.
Right.
And so, he's perceived, and even these depictions in Black Sails, Crossbones, they're not accurate, okay?
Yeah.
They make him out to be this villainous cutthroat, a brute. He had to have been very beloved by his crew because he had unusual power as a pirate captain. Considering they could be voted out at any minute, he was in there for years. Even in my book, he calls off a battle once, an attack once, because he's sick. And everyone's like, okay, well, Blackbeard's sick. We can't do it. Who does that? How would that ever happen without an incredibly powerful pirate commander who was more powerful than being bound by the articles? So
I'm just picturing Blackbeard going, I need a me day today, if you guys don't mind.
Yeah, right, exactly. Well, but that's it. That's what I'm saying is, if you put him in the context of his Jamaican upbringing, from it wasn't probably a mega aristocrat, but he come from relatively well-to-do planter mariner father,
sure,
who had slaves, who and he did some things in his life that show kind of more of a generous guy. Like he gave, it's been established that he bequeathed his estate that he inherited as the firstborn son to his stepmother and his 3 step siblings.
Right,
and that's shown. I mean, that's proof. And then you have his, getting the medical supply, even holding Charleston hostage to get supplies. People think that the medical supplies were for him specifically, and I don't buy that. You can, in my little write-up, I have like a 15 or 20 page thing, rebuttal kind of thing to all the Blackbeard myths that I think are ridiculous at the back, which hopefully you'll get to that at the end.
I will, yeah.
And then, so I'm trying to get the record straight. Now, is my interpretation 100% accurate? No. I mean, I have to read into them. I have to read between the lines too, and so I have to make decisions. Did he deliberately crash the Queen Anne's Revenge at Old Topsail Inlet or not? You gotta make a decision because there's debate on those things.
Sure, yeah.
Caesar, his black slave, not his black slave, his freed black man. Did he free him personally, or he was clearly a free pirate aboard his ship and a coveted officer, or at least maybe not an officer, but he was definitely had covered responsibility, which I have a long description in the back of my, in the back of the book, like a 3-page write-up on that. Where does Caesar fit in? He's a critical piece to the Blackbeard puzzle. So Blackbeard clearly freed a large percentage of blacks, fought as free seamen under him, and yet he still kept slaves in his hold too. So there's that dichotomy.
Sure.
So, he wasn't 100% perfect guy. He was still a pirate. Let's face it. He was still scaring the hell out of people. But at the same time, he has a lot of admirable traits, and he certainly wasn't a cutthroat villain.
That's true. That's true.
He just wasn't.
Nice. Good. Sam, this has been really fun. I'm glad we finally got it together and got over our technical difficulties and managed to talk it out.
That sounds good. It's been a good time.
Yep. So I'll get that all in the show notes so people can check it out and go get your books and all that kind of good stuff. And I hope we can talk again soon.
I hope so too. Take care, Phil. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Bye-bye. And there it is, friends. That is my interview with Samuel Marquis, author of Blackbeard, The Birth of America. You can find out more about his writing at samuelmarquisbooks.com. And of course, I will have all of his books linked up in the show notes so that you can click right on through those Amazon links, help the show out. And those show notes are going to be at underthecrossbones.com/136. We are sponsored today by Pirate Radio The Treasure Coast, WKKC-DB, playing the best music of today's hits and yesterday's classics, and Pirate Radio Talk, playing the best pirate shows, including Under the Crossbones, 24/7, commercial-free. It's all good stuff. To listen, go to pirateradiothetreasurecoast.com for the music site, or Pirate Radio TC, which is the talk site. And do they have apps? You bet they have apps. Pirate Radio, WKKC-DB, is the music station app, and Pirate Radio Talk is the talk station app. All of it brought to you by iTreasure Radio, the very best digital media from independently owned stations at iTreasureRadio.com. Got questions for me? Got suggestions for me? Want to tell me about your trip to a cool pirate festival or other type of event? Maybe you saw a cool pirate band live. Maybe you just got a recommendation for a pirate album or band or something like that. I would like to know about it, and if you could send me a cool message, I'll play it on the show. Just give me a call at 408-599-2733. Again, that's 408-599-2733. That's my Google Voice number, so it'll pick up. You leave me a message there. It's not like you can call it any time of day, because I'm not going to pick it up. It's not the phone I answer. You can just leave me a voicemail, and then I'll check it out after again. All right, that's 408-599-2733. And that is our show for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. I always appreciate it. Again, if you want to find out more about Samuel Marquis and the stuff that he's writing about and pick up Blackbeard, The Birth of America, go to samuelmarquisbooks.com. And of course, I'll have all those books linked up in the show notes as well at underthecrossbones.com/136. Awesome episodes coming up. Yes, we're going to hear next week from Richard Rasner of Clan Darksail, where we'll also have a little bit more Pirate Captain Toledano talk in there, and you'll find out how that all connects up. We got Cheryl Jones coming up, who's a British Navy expert, and she is a hoot, man. I'm actually doing her podcast coming up in a couple of weeks while I'm in Los Angeles. And then the week after that, Dave Burgess of Teach Like a Pirate. And he's an interesting guy. I think if you were at all involved in historical reenactment or education of any sort, you're going to find that to be a very fun discussion with Dave Burgess of Teach Like a Pirate. In the meantime, kids, that's our show, and I want you to go out and be good to each other. See you next week.